Alright, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing how to trade Dodgy's 80% plus win rate strategy, inverse fair value gaps. Now if you haven't heard of Dodgy, go check out his YouTube channel. He makes great videos and he is really good at what he does. So I definitely recommend you checking out his YouTube channel. Credit to the model goes to him, and I'm very grateful for him teaching me. Anyway, let's get right into it. So there are three basic things you need to know when you trade Dodgy's strategy. Now his strategy is really high win rate, but it's because it requires you to do a few specific things. Actually, there's four things. The first thing is you really need to have some form of liquidity swept. So what do I mean by that? I'll go through some examples. Here, before you took the trade, you saw this low get taken out. Here, before this trade, you see this high get taken out. Here, before this trade, you see Asia's high get taken out. So you want to see some kind of significant liquidity get taken out. So a lot of the time that can be like a previous session's low, like Asia's high. A lot of time that could be previous hour's low, like in this case right here. A lot of the time it can be previous hour's low, data low, some other kind of liquidity sweep. As long as it has some kind of liquidity sweep, you're pretty much good. So the first thing is you need to see some kind of liquidity sweep. Second, obviously you need an inverse fair value gap. Now if you don't know what an inverse fair value gap is, go check out my video on inverse fair value gaps, but I will briefly cover what an inverse fair value gap is right now in this video. So an inverse fair value gap, first of all, a fair value gap is when you have a sequence of 3 candles and the wick of the candle before and the wick of the candle after leave this empty area in between that doesn't overlap. So this right here would be the fair value gap. Now, when price comes back up and has a candle body close above the old fair value gap, it has to close. If it has a wick, if it's like this, if it has a wick, it's not good. It's not valid. It needs to have a candle body close above the fair value gap, the old fair value gap. And I'll show some examples of what I mean. But let's go to some basic examples. So let's see. Which one do I want to use? So we're going to use this one on the 2-minute. So you had this series of 3 candles where you had this low, this candle body, and then this candle's high. You have this old bearish fair value gap. When this candle body closes above it, that is your entry, and that is essentially what an inverse fair value gap is. It's when there's a candle body close above an old fair value gap or a candle body close below old bullish fair value gap. So basically, an inverse fair value gap is when a fair value gap gets violated or gets disrespected. Okay, so that's the next thing you need, is you need an inverse fair value gap. And that is your entry. So an inverse fair value gap that's your entry. But before you can enter, you need to have some kind of target. And what is a target? A target is some kind of draw on liquidity. And I'll show you what I mean. So the third thing you need is some kind of draw. I'll type it out. Some kind of draw on liquidity. So what could this be? This could be session highs or lows, previous hours lows. This could be previous hours lows or previous highs, previous hour highs / lows. It could be equal highs or lows, and it could be data highs or lows. Now I'll have more videos on what each of these things are in the future, but essentially all you need to know about a draw on liquidity is it's a significant high or low that is going to be targeted. So you need some kind of draw on liquidity. Session highs or lows, previous hours high or lows, equal highs or lows, or data highs or lows. So let's go through some examples. So in this case, you had a candle body close above this old bearish fair value gap. Here, this was just, it wasn't a significant high. It was just like, internal high, right? So it wasn't anything crazy, but this is where you target, and I would just take profit here because this is a giant fair value gap, but it clearly went up to this high as well. And you'd move your stop loss to break even at this high. So next, you can see right here, see how these are equal lows, or essentially relatively equal lows, and this is all low resistance liquidity. So this is purposely generated liquidity that is going to get ran through. So what you're waiting for is you're waiting for a fair value gap to get violated. So this doesn't look like a fair value gap, but on the 2-minute, this actually is a fair value gap. If I go to the 2-minute, you can see that right here, this is a fair value gap. So when this candle body closes below, and it works on the 1-minute too, if you use a sequence of 2 candle bodies together like this on the 1-minute, well, I don't know what happened to it, but anyway, you get the idea that there's a fair value gap here, a candle body closed below, that's your entry. Also, we swept some kind of significant draw on liquidity, Asia's high. So Asia's session is from 8 o'clock to midnight. We sweep Asia's high, we get an inverse fair value gap, and what do we target? Equal lows. So this is the draw on liquidity, this is the target. You would take partials all the way through here. So partial at this low, stop loss to break even, and then you let your runners run all the way down to these equal lows. So equal lows. Now another thing that I haven't mentioned is you want to look for what's called SMTs. Now I have a video completely on SMTs on their own, but basically an SMT is when you have a crack in correlation where one asset forms a higher high and another asset forms, a higher low, and another asset forms a lower low. So it's a break in correlation between 2 assets that would normally be really correlated. So here you had this old bearish fair value gap. This candle body closed above it. We swept out previous hour's low. What's the draw on liquidity? You have this low resistance liquidity. You also have this high and this high. So on this case, it wasn't anything in specific, but we had an SMT. We had a previous hour's low get swept. So you could have just targeted any of these internal highs and then moved your stop loss to break even. And in this case, you maybe would have got stopped at break even, but it looks like you would have just missed getting stopped out at break even, and you would have hit your TP1. So here's like TP1, probably like something like this. I don't know, like this. Just move your stop loss to break even here, and then TP1, TP2, TP3. So and then you want to see some kind of low resistance liquidity as well. In this case, look at all this generated liquidity: lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and then we sweep previous hour's low, and then we have our distribution to the upside. What is this? Old bearish for value gap, candle body close above. What is this? Equal highs and low resistance liquidity straight to the equal highs. Okay, and the fourth thing that is really, really important about Dodgy strategy, if you don't do this, you will not do well with Dodgy strategy. You need to move your stop loss to break even at the first internal high. This is so important. This is how it gets to be such a high win rate strategy. So you need to move your stop loss to break even at the first internal high. If you do not do this, you are not trading his strategy correctly. This is so important. So you need to move your stop loss to break even at the first internal high. What do I mean by that? In this case, you move your stop loss to break even when this low gets taken out. And you can see when the market runs, it does not come back to your break even. So the break even will save you so much of the time. So you gotta move your stop loss to break even at these first internal lows. So this would be an example of your internal low get taken out. This is where you move your stop loss to break even. This internal high gets taken out, stop loss to break even. See, if it wants to run, it's not going to come back to your break even. So that about covers how to trade Dodgy's inverse for value gap strategy. Check out Dodgy's YouTube channel. He is essentially the GOAT of this, and you can learn a lot from him by checking out his YouTube channel. I appreciate if you made it this far in this video, and if you have, definitely consider liking and subscribing. That would mean a lot, as I am really working hard on these videos and trying to grow my YouTube channel. So I will see you in the next one. Bye.